Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone. It is caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown! 43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
All the way to the hole. Throws it up. Indiana's got the first lead of this contest.
Here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. How are you? If you're looking for a smart, engaging sports talk show, you've come to the wrong place. But welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio instead. Appreciate each and every one of you being here. Of course, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, powered by Andy Moore Honda. Go to andymoorehonda.com to get more to your door and the best in new and used vehicles. Our good friends over at Hoosier Hanks East, where you can find after the game with Todd Leary again tomorrow night as Indiana takes on Nebraska. The Indiana men's team, that is. Appreciate everybody jumping on the Andy Moore Honda hotline. Brian down in Ellington, Florida, near Anna Maria Island. Brian, are you going over to the Ugly Grouper? I must know. Howie said he watched Drake versus ISU on YouTube last night. Fun basketball, a lot of good players on those two squads. Those are teams that you enjoy during the NCAA tournament, without question. The Lady Hoosiers, they got blitzed by Illinois. Yes, they did, unexpectedly. Wow, they take a big L. Was it 20 points? Whereas I wrote that damn score down. Gee whiz, 86-66. Surprising loss and a costly one because they were the 15th overall seed, released Indiana being in 15th overall seed by the NCAA in their first release of that, which means they would host if they were able to stay in that spot. But boy, that's not good. So there's that. Number 2, Houston taking care of number 6, Iowa State at home, 76-65. William Byron wins the rain-delayed Daytona 500 on a final caution wreck. Over the weekend, number 1, Montverde takes down number 2, Long Island, leading scorer of the game. I think he had 24 points. Liam McNeely, I reposted a nice oop that he tossed to Asa Newell yesterday on an outlet pass from Cooper Flagg. I mean, you want to talk about an all-star team, that Montverde team. I went down and watched them in their invitational this year again, and the talent on that squad is stupid. They have guys that can come off the bench. As I said, one of the games, they had a guy that came off the bench in the last quarter and a half and was the leading scorer of the game. Just impressive stuff. Appreciate you, Fred, Brian, Howie, Russell. Asking, he wonders how Purdue missed out on a 7'7" out of Montreal, currently attending IMG Academy. Where's he headed to? Plus, they already have, I think, 1 or 2 7-footers sitting there. 5 Lefts, how are you today, man? Appreciate you. Shenanigans, all the way from southern Wabash County. That's exactly right, Robert. Appreciate you. Must-see radio. I like that. That's good. I may have to steal that. The Abbott and Costello Sports Talk Radio. I wish. I hope. Man, you know what? That's funny. You want to talk about memories. Growing up, I think it was as soon as you'd get home from church, Abbott and Costello would be on. And I couldn't wait. Funny dudes. I mean, think about how long ago that was and how flipping funny they were, the timing and all of that. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you're missing out. Brian has been to the Ugly Grouper, but are you going back, my friend? Are you going back? Always go back. Ed, he's down in, what you doing down in Hollywood, Florida? Hollywood calling. Robert, can you get a pair of boxer underwear for the guys they used in game shorts? Yes, more talk on the uniforms. Oh, get over it, people. You know, the players love the uniforms. It's a younger thing, man. The older generation has to be a little more accepting of change. And trust me, when I say this, if Indiana was winning, that change is a hell of a lot more. It's a lot easier to accept for you guys. I get that. I do not believe that's the case, Robert. Gritty says Woodson on the coach's show last night, his answers gave her zero faith in his coaching and leadership abilities. Well, I will say this. You really don't get any answers. And Don asks the questions, but I think I sent a tweet out after he was asked, how do you turn this thing around? What do you do? And it was just cliche. Well, we got to work hard. We got to grind, yada, yada. It's not. There's no details. There's no understand. You know, a simple question I would ask, I would go right up to the free throws. Well, no, stop. What are you actually doing to change what's going on? Because just shooting free throws ain't it. They can shoot free throws until their jaws drop. I'm not sure that's quite it. I think it needs to be shaken up. Turn twangy country music on, something that the kids aren't going to like. Crank it up to 10. Have somebody stand behind them with cymbals when they're shooting free throws. Whatever it takes to get them a little mentally tougher. Just my thoughts about it. Kevin, how are you? Down in Jeffersonville. Appreciate you, Southern Indiana. And I may get another shot at seeing Floyd Central and Jeffersonville play basketball, as Jeffersonville has to get out of their first game in the draw of the sectional tournament, and then they will meet up with Floyd Central. I did not get to see that game earlier. Fonzo White down there coaching at Floyd, doing a good job. And, of course, you've got great friend of the show, Sharon Wilkerson, former Indiana player over Jeffersonville, running that motion offense, doing a heck of a job for them. So congratulations. But looking forward to seeing that. Yeah, I saw that, Philip. Post-game brawl between Texas A&M Commerce and Incarnate World. Just stupid stuff. Ridiculous. That's just, when that kind of thing happens, that's the kind of people, I guess. I watched it. Some of it was just absolutely ridiculous. The one guy running around, done. To me, done for the year. you're out. You're gone. Bye-bye. Russell said the officials have been told to clamp down, and it's noticeable. We'll see. Kevin asking, how does everyone think that Indiana will play tomorrow? Well, personally, I think they're going to play a lot tomorrow like they played in the last game and the game before that and the game before that. It's not that they necessarily play bad. They don't. Doesn't seem to be a plan to take away what other teams bring as their positive, and there does not seem to be a way of Indiana extending their will or imposing their will on opposing teams. They're allowing the pace to be dictated to them. I don't expect any change there. Why would I? I think that they should just throw caution to the wind and insist that 3-pointers be taken, twice as many. And I'd say, I don't care what it takes. As a matter of fact, draw up 3 plays. The first 3 plays are going to be 3-point shots. Start extending that defense, making them respect you, but that's a whole nother story. 6 games left. They've had a whole season to do that. It's unfortunate for Indiana. Sean says next week, let's play Mike Woodson radio bingo. There was another hump. Get over the hump last night, I believe. I did. There ended up being one of those. We got to get over the hump. And Russell, no, Scott is not an attorney. Gritty says, Sean, great idea. Get them over the hump. Have to work harder. The season isn't over. Yep, that was more of the same. That's the problem for me. Is you're not hearing anything. You're hearing no specifics. You're hearing no accountability. There is just simply no accountability and no thoughts on exactly what needs to be done, because it's either unknown, unaware, or there's oblivious. But hey, man, we've got a great show lined up. Mike DeCourcy, of course, joins us from the Big Ten Network and Sporting News. We'll talk bracketology, that time of year. Michael Niziolek from the Bloomington Herald-Times will join us, Chronic Hoosier as well. And Mike Woodson has a presser today, so we're going to try to join that one as well. Bringing it all to you all at once. We'll got to take a break. We've got more coming up after this on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our good friends from Hoosier Hanks East, located over off of College Mall Road in Bloomington. You'll find us there tomorrow night after the game with Todd Leary. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the 5 lifts. I think Patino just got pissed, man. He's a competitor. I mean, that dude, I'm telling you, he's just a competitor. He went over, he just got pissed off, went over the line. The funny thing is he's complaining about those are all his. I mean, he brought every one of those players in. That's the funny thing. Yeah, we got to get that figured out, that live thing, Johnny boy.
All right, here we go. 30 seconds. Mike should be here shortly.
It is your one-stop shop for high-quality meats, bakery items, and now fresh seafood. Chop Shop Market and Table has the largest selection of in-house made products around and everything you need to make a gourmet meal at home. Or pick out a tomahawk steak or a grouper filet and enjoy it cooked to perfection in Chop Shop Steakhouse. Chop Shop Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by the Chop Shop, home of the Indiana football and men's basketball coaches shows. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back into Sports Beat Radio on this Tuesday. What did the groundhog say, John?
The groundhog. Wow. Excuse me. Give me 2 seconds to clear my throat.
One.
The groundhog said that it should be an early spring, if I'm not mistaken. Mike DeCourcy, is that what happened with the groundhog this year?
I think I missed that one. There must have been a bracket day. I don't know.
Oh, there must have. Hey, what's the groundhog needs his own bracket. Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News and Big Ten Network. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I cannot complain. The snow has come and gone. It was hilarious. I think that was Friday.
Right.
The show was over, and I just, as usual, just keep working. And about 3 hours into that, I had to get up to go do something, and something caught my eye, and it was the blanket of white that was the light was bouncing off of. And I'm like, what is going on? And I look outside, and we had 3 inches of snow already, and it was coming down like the frozen tundra. I'm like, holy cow.
Yeah, I had to go to Chicago that afternoon for Saturday's BTN stuff. And so all credit to the Indianapolis airport crew and the folks at United Airlines for getting us out of there. I still don't know how it happened, but we made it no trouble. It was great.
Awesome to see and hear. College basketball still becoming what we love. College basketball. Definitely no bigger upset in the Big Ten this season than Ohio State knocking off Purdue. It's always a shocker, but it shouldn't be. That should always be a momentary shocker. Okay, and all right, it's college basketball. How can we not expect it? The least expected team to do that. I don't know if that was partly Purdue just thinking that's Ohio State, or if it was just a strict matchup issue, which exposed Purdue's deficiencies, as each team has their kryptonite. Houston is probably the most. They probably of the four, I would put them number 4 because they're all someone that you can always catch in a matchup issue. UConn is UConn. They have proven to be very, very strong. And Arizona's been pretty good, but the top 4 seeds, is that what you have? So Purdue, that loss doesn't really affect them that much, I don't think, Mike, especially with the schedule that they still have remaining. Right. It's not like their schedule's not easy, but it is simply because the bulk of these tougher games are at home, minus going to Illinois, right, which could become the game of the year for the Big Ten championship.
Yeah,
well, it only allow them to tie.
Yeah, I think the likely scenario, although not certain, would be that it would give Illinois the opportunity to tie. And I think that Illinois would gladly take that. I think Illinois would if you said, okay, you win this game at home against this terrific team, you get a share of the Big Ten title. I think Illinois would absolutely sign up for that. But we'll see. Obviously, Purdue has some other difficult games still. They have to play Michigan State. They have to play Wisconsin. As you said, those were at home. And then they have some lesser games. But how do you say they're lesser games after they went to Ohio State and struggled there? I mean, Ohio State's got talent. We know that. They just weren't connecting very well. They weren't playing
with an interim coach on top of that, which maybe that gave them a spark. I don't know.
Yeah, it might have. Certainly, they played either that or the opportunity to play number one. One of those two things. Full house. Buckeyes fans wanting to take down the number 1 overall seed in the committee's bracket. That had unlike some of the other teams that played after that reveal. Excuse me. That Purdue's status as number 1 overall had 24 hours to bake. So everybody in the building knew that was out there or had the opportunity to know. And they certainly brought great enthusiasm to their part in the crowd. And I think that the players responded to that opportunity and they earned their victory. There's no doubt about that. And they showed what's still problematic about Purdue's lineup or rotation or circumstance or whatever. You had Fletcher Lawyer only attempt 1 3-pointer. You had Ethan Morton pass up a wide open 3 in a crucial situation. And if you're going to do that, like if you're going to pass up wide open shots, then you better be Michael Cooper. I mean, I'm not saying Michael Cooper would have passed up, but I'm saying you got to be so good on defense that if you're withdrawing that much from the offense, then you had better be so oppressive on defense that you make up for it. And I don't think that was the case on Sunday because Ohio State's perimeter players had great success, especially Jamison Battle. They could not find a matchup they really liked for Jamison Battle in that game.
Well, that's the problem that a lot of people have.
Yeah, but Jamison had not been that effective, not game-changing effective. I mean, you still get points here or there, but he'd not been game-changing effective in a lot of games. That's part of the reason why Ohio State is where it is and Chris Holtmann is where he is. But in that game, he used his physical advantage and his skill advantage to great effect. And as I said, Purdue did not find a matchup that was successful against him.
With Purdue having, when you have Zach Edey, I mean, he is what he is. He is the undisputed, going to be the undisputed 2-time player of the year. Probably a dominance we haven't seen since Ralph Sampson.
And he's more dominant than Ralph Sampson.
I know he is, but I'm saying since then, I don't know. Has there been someone back-to-back years that has been the guy?
No.
and he's better than Ralph Sampson. He's harder to defend than Ralph Sampson. But with that, does Purdue rely on him too much?
No, I thought they didn't rely on him enough, Jim. I thought they didn't rely on him enough. And part of that was Zach's fault in a way. He allowed Zed Key to get at too many balls. I don't think he adjusted as well as he ordinarily would for Zed's quick hands. Zed stripped him at least 3 times in that game, at least, because we did a package on it in Big Ten basketball and beyond. He stripped him at least 3 times in that game. And that's a lot for a big guy to get stripped by the same defender, and especially not a help defender. I mean,
without a foul being called on it.
Well, I didn't think any of the 3 were fouls.
No, I was kidding. I was being facetious.
Raphael Davis thought that there was too much arm bar contact on the 3rd strip, which was the hardest. I think that there are so many fouls committed against Zach Edey that you're not getting an arm bar call. I mean, call the stuff where he gets wailed on his arms, I mean, start there, because they're not calling all those either. But an arm bar, there's no way Zed Key's getting called for an arm bar against Zach Edey unless he, throws the forearm into him. But a arm bar contact, there's no way that's happening because the refs, like I said, the refs are letting so much more go than that. But he stripped him 3 times, and that, Zach needed to keep the ball higher, needed to post closer. He wasn't getting as good a post position as he ordinarily does. And again, some of that goes to the great defense Zed played. And also a lot of it goes to what I said before, that you could throw as many defenders in the lane as you wanted because nobody from Purdue was making any shots. They were 3 of 9 from 3.
That's Jones what my question actually was. When you mentioned some of there were some guys that passed up opportunities, have they just become too reliant on Zach Edey to be the guy that's going to make that play?
No, you have you have to at certain points you have to take the opportunities that are created by having Zach to take open shots. I don't think it was, I got to get the ball to Zach. It was just, I don't want this shot. I'm not taking this shot. Let somebody else shoot it. That's a problem. Throwing the ball into Zach because you passed up an open shot, if he's open, I'm all for that. I mean, the guys that, at the rim, he's probably shooting 70%. So I don't think that's the problem. I'm talking about getting open shots and the ball goes sideways, not the ball goes in. That's not the problem.
And so now we look forward as the end of the Big Ten season is. It looked like that it wasn't going to be much fun, much of a race. And what happened? What the hell has happened with Wisconsin? I've never seen a team that has been battling right there. They're at the top. They're playing hard. They played, as a matter of fact, it's as if the loss to Purdue just took the wind out of their sails, because that was a game that was this close to going the other way. And then all of a sudden, boom, they've lost now 4 out of 5, I think.
Right, 4 out of 5. No, I think it's 5 out of 6 because they had a 4-game losing streak, and then they won last week, and then they fell on the weekend at Iowa, a game that they could have won, that they had a significant lead in, gave up that lead, then went basket for basket basically and lost in overtime. I think that some of it is, again, it's possible. I'm not going to say it's easy, but it's possible to lose your confidence as a team or as a player when you're in a league where almost every game is challenging. If not every game is challenging. There aren't, if you're in the SEC right now, like there's not much room to breathe. But here comes Vandy, and everybody gets to relax a little bit. Or if you are, say, in the Big East right now, and the Big East is great from 1 to 9, but then you still have your Georgetown, which is only starting the rebuild process under Ed Cooley, and you have DePaul, which has moved on from its coach and hasn't beaten anybody. Those are opportunities that you get to feel like, okay, we can win. You don't get those in the Big Ten. they're just not there. You don't get them in the Big 12 either. There's no one like that you can say, well, we absolutely we'd have to really try to lose this game in order to lose it, and that causes problems for teams in the course of a season. And I think that's where Wisconsin is right now. They didn't play badly at Iowa. They defended well, especially in the first half. Second half, not as well. But they played really well on offense for most of the game. I don't know what the final in regulation was, but I'm pretty sure it was in the 70s before they went to OT. So they played very well in the first. Let's see, it was 78-78 after regulation. So clearly they played well on offense. I mean, Iowa playing at an 80-point pace is playing. Wisconsin playing at an 80-point pace is playing very well offensively. And so I just think that sometimes you lose a little confidence, and sometimes it's the opposition. Iowa's a good basketball team. They're not what they might have been if things had gone a little differently early in the season. But they're a very good basketball team, and a problem for teams that are trying to get into the tournament or get seated higher. Even though Iowa is probably, I do the first 4 out and the next 4 out. They're probably maybe 2 groupings beyond that out. So they're not there anywhere near there at this point, but they're at least in those groupings. They're probably an NIT team, is what I'm saying, and that team is capable of beating you certainly at home, especially with Caitlin Clark in the crowd.
Well, that's another thing. Too bad, and I've already heard it mentioned next year, a 3-point shooting contest pairing Caitlin Clark and Sabrina Ionescu versus Damian Lillard and Steph Curry, adding a little more intrigue to it. That would be something. How much did Curry end up winning that by? I didn't see.
I will be honest with you. I did not get the opportunity to see any of the All-Star activities. We had games on Big Ten Network going all the way into the evening, and then the big show and all that. So I did not get to see how that turned out.
Neither did I, unfortunately. Just as if I did not see probably 200 of the 211 points scored by whoever put that.
I will tell you, Jim, Sunday night, we finished Beyond, Big Ten Basketball and Beyond, the weekly show we do in the conference season. And I went to the hotel, and there is a hallway that you walk to the elevators, and to the right is a bar, a hotel bar, and there are 3 big TVs over the bar. And so I hadn't had any opportunity to see any of the All-Star game, but it was clear that the game was on the bar TVs. But they were in a replay or something, so the score line wasn't there. So I stopped for a minute, and then they came out of the replay and reestablished live action and put the score line up, and it was like 212 to like 195, and I just laughed. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, it's the worst thing is the best thing that happened with the All-Star game was the Indiana Glory that TNT produced, which I like to have seen him gone a little deeper. You had Reggie Miller interviewing Larry Legend and Isaiah Thomas. They had the Indiana State hat out there, the IU hat, the Pacers hat. You want to talk about Indiana royalty? No question there. Isaiah even tried to give Larry the IU hat. He's like, "Here, give us to him."
Hey,
but that's
he gets a little share of that. He's some of his time went to IU. So
all 420 days of it. I'm telling you, that's what I'm saying. He gets a little. But they didn't ask about that, and I'm like, oh my god. I would love to hear his thoughts today
Yes.
on that.
Yes.
I know he doesn't have any regrets, but boy, does he realize what he would have been a part of. Because those teams at Indiana at that time were loaded, but I'm thinking about 77 and 78 and how good those teams would have been, because that would have been Larry Bird in his like junior, senior year or whatever. And that would have had to have been phenomenal. He would have still had his nemesis, Kent Benson, in 77. Probably would have never passed him the ball, but he would have had him there.
Yeah, I wonder, I think you have to look at it that Larry went to the place that was best for him in the end. I mean, he became one of the great college basketball players of all time, became one of the great NBA players of all time. Maybe he needed that freedom offensively to play the way he plays. I don't know that I don't know whether or not it would have worked for him to develop in the way that he did if he were playing in Bob's system. I have to think. A lot of me thinks no. I think that.
Well, I can tell you that the other day we were talking about Caitlin Clark and her freedom, and I was like, "Well, what coach is going to shut that down?" And Todd Leary didn't bat a second. He said, "Bob Knight."
Hey, remember the old joke about who can hold? The only person that could hold Michael Jordan under 20 points was Dean Smith. Michael was allowed to play very freely, but he wasn't allowed to be a dominant force offensively in terms of production. He was playing with a lot of good players, but he won one championship and got eliminated in the Sweet 16 in one of the others, and I can't remember where they got eliminated in '83. I can't remember, but he was so gifted that you have to think that if he was allowed to go off, that Carolina might have done more in his second 2 years. The first year he was what's the word? He was less important in the offense than James Worthy was, even though he was Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan was in there waiting to get out because it didn't take long once there was no James Worthy for Michael to get out. And start being Michael. He was one of the best players in the country his sophomore year and the best player in the country his junior year. So I have to think that it sometimes you just have to be in the right circumstance. And for Michael, that was when he got to Chicago and got the freedom to play offensively as he did.
Absolutely, and it's just amazing. Have I asked you? We've got to take a break, but have I asked you if you have watched Winning Time?
Yeah, I think we talked about it last week. I've watched the first season, but not the second. Okay. I thought it was wonderful. I thought it was tremendous.
Yeah, and the second season they do a much better job. I don't want to say portraying Bird, but giving some context, depth to his character, because last year he was a semi-racist guy at some level. But boy, did they show him as being an angry person. Just always, he was always dog facing, but it is much more in depth in this, which is it gives it probably shows people a lot that they didn't know. They're like, huh. So, the fact that he would go over every day and play against his game was not, on the side of being afraid, but was not exactly a white guy's typical game. He had flair, and he played against all the African-American workers from French Lick that would come out at lunch and whatnot. And man, he learned against a tough crowd. I guarantee you they cut him no slack, but whatever it took, that's it just blows my mind that in a small place like where he was, that he could find what he needed to make him better. And that was his own desire, but that is probably what made him the player that he became, because he was playing against these guys that were just workers, but man, they're probably athletic. I guarantee you there were some dang good players in there, and he learned in that, and just very cool.
Absolutely. You never know where that guy's going to come from. Who knew Caitlin Clark would grow up in West Des Moines and be what she is? Or Pete Maravich growing up in Aliquippa, Pennsylvania, and then following his father to Carolina and then to LSU. You just don't know where that extraordinary talent is going to come from. Magic growing up in Lansing. Lots of guys grow up as great players, but what produces the special ones? It starts with something innate, and then it goes to how much you're willing to invest in the pursuit of greatness, because you can be a really good player and make a lot of money, make a great living, delay having to sit behind a desk for a long time, but to be what Magic is or Bird is. I remember watching a Kevin Durant workout in the summer one year, and it's just like, or LeBron. You just like, if you followed those guys in the summer, you'd be like, those guys have that much money and they're still working this hard. Why? And it's something that drives them. It's that desire to be the best, desire to be historically great that not everybody has. And not everybody who has that desire can be, because they don't have that talent, but you can't be historically great unless you have that drive.
Trust me. I know. I'm still reaching. We've got to take a break. We've got the great Mike DeCourcy with us from the Big Ten Network, and we'll talk more college hoops when we come back right after this. Brought to you by Chop Shop Market and Table, where each Monday night you can find inside men's basketball, Indiana men's basketball with Don Fisher. They were there just last night. And make sure you stop in and pick up some of the Voiles family Wagyu. If you've never had Wagyu steak, I'm telling you, you don't know what you're missing, because it is exquisite. And you can get locally grown or raised Wagyu beef at Chop Shop from the Voiles family. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're looking for a sure. There we go. All right. All right. If that works. Oh, man. Man, I haven't figured out how to get my stupid printer connected to my computer.
The wireless one.
Yeah,
those are fun. It was a lot easier when you just stuck something in there, and
I guarantee it. One of the funniest thoughts that I had watching the All-Star game was during the Celebrity All-Star game.
Yeah.
Which kind of makes it more of a circus. But at one point they had Lil Wayne, which I've got nothing against Lil Wayne, but Lil Wayne was coaching on the sideline. And if you know, he has a very unique appearance. All I could think about is what it would be like for Larry Bird to be walking over to the sideline to Lil Wayne, and what that conversation would be like. What do you think we need to do here? I wish I could impersonate him, but I don't know any of the music to do that. But I just that, and then when Stephen A was coaching, it was like, oh God, why would they do this? There's a reason. No offense, that I don't watch him on TV. I just can't take the yelling. And boy, that opportunity was one for him to yell nonstop. Yada, yada, yada. But the NBA All-Star game it's about to become the NFL, which I understand the guys in the NFL. That's kind of hard to give your all in that and we're not worried about injury. These guys don't even try to compete.
All right, here we go, guys.
That's right. 2023 and 2024 Honda Pilots, HRVs, CRVs, Honda Ridgelines, payment free for 90 days. Or get 0.9% APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to andymorehonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indy Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Corey, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday. Mike DeCourcy with us. We'll get him back on here in just a second. Buffalo Bill asking, how's it going? Said, what day is it? He's been laid up with a hangover from going through 3 bottles of Eagle Rare during the Northwestern game, listening to Don Fisher say, boo-booey. Take a drink. Well, luckily he didn't. He would have given you a break on that game. He wasn't having a great game. Johnny. Who's Johnny? What did I miss out on? Derek mentioning one of these guys that Rick Pitino brought in that he's complaining about is Chris Ledlam, someone that was, I believe, chased by Indiana but not landed. I don't know how that happened. John Boy, are we getting Mike back?
I mean, maybe. I don't know why he disconnected. I'm going to see if he can come back on.
Sean says, in my opinion, reading the fan temperature, was it worse at the end of Archie's coaching career at IU or now? Boy, perfect question. Perfect timing, Mike, because Sean is asking, and I have not answered in my opinion, reading the fan temperature, was it worse at the end of Archie's tenure or at IU or now? I'd say it's still a little worse than it is right now, because the only thing that's making that difference is the folks that are still holding on to the hopes that Mike Woodson can get things turned around. But it is a little it gives you pause when he's asked that very direct question, like he was last night on his coach's show, and just continues to give kind of the old cliche answers. Oh, we got to keep grinding, got to get them over the hump, got to yada, yada, yada. I want to hear specific answers.
What question was he asked? What question was he asked?
What can you do to try to get this thing turned around? I mean, and there's not one answer. I get that.
I think one of the reasons why you see a nebulous answer in that circumstance is because the real answer is we have very good players, but not enough of the right good players in the right positions. We have too many good players here, or just enough here and not enough there. We don't have good players that do this well, particularly dynamic defenders on the perimeter. They don't have that. They don't have enough good shooters, obviously. They don't have a point guard that they can rely upon to play 30-some minutes a game at the Big Ten level. They clearly don't have that. I mean, they had Xavier Johnson for, 10 games or whatever he played, and he wasn't playing at a Big Ten level for some of those. So that's why coaches do that. The other, he could sit. How would you feel if he'd sit there and said what I just said? You don't want to hear that from him. You don't want
kind of like Rick Pitino did the other day.
I mean,
now the thing about Rick is He brought all those guys in.
Yes.
So he can't complain about it being leftovers or this, that, and the other thing.
It is rather interesting to hear him complain about a lack of dynamism when AJ Storr is lighting up the Big Ten by being probably the most dynamic, effective wing player in the league.
I think he knows he made some mistakes in not keeping some guys, and he's a competitive dude, man. He is a competitive guy, but I think he knows he made some mistakes.
I would have to think he did, yes. And AJ would be the most obvious example of that. So I would say that that at this juncture, look, Indiana clearly isn't where they want to be right now. But this is what Indiana fans wanted. They wanted a connection back tonight. They wanted somebody to make them better defensively. They wanted, this in a lot of ways. But
they don't have the second part of that. They're not good defensively.
Well, they were for a while. They failed.
When they had Trace Jackson Davis.
No, I mean, even prior to that, there were times this year. I would venture to say there was a time this year when they ranked reasonably well in Ken Palm defense. It hasn't been, it has faded as the Big Ten season has gone along, because when you're not winning and you're not scoring, your defense is going to go with it. Players have a hard time working as hard on D as they did at one point. When you're not making shots, you're not scoring, and you're not winning, it's hard to be great defensively. It's just not easy. And I think that they were a pretty good defensive unit for a lot of this year. Look at the Kansas game, for instance. It took a very good defensive effort to do what they did for most of that game. But again, the shooting failed them. Their ability to score in that game late failed them, and they end up giving up buckets and losing that game, and that's deflating. And you're not going to be at among the top defensive teams when you're in that circumstance. So I just keep saying to myself that I don't understand. One, I don't understand, if this is what you wanted, why are you unhappy? And two, do you think that it's always going to be a straight line in college sports now? Because it's never going to be a straight line again for most. It's just not.
I don't think anybody thought it would be this bad. And
well, how bad is it? I mean, this is not like Missouri bad right now. I mean, it's not good, but it's not, it's not epically bad.
The things that we're talking about, like that they're missing, the shooting, guard play, a big part of that is because they could not get that taken care of in the offseason through the portal, left the scholarship open.
Well, I mean, they clearly invested far too much. Now, and I don't mean economically, but I mean spiritually or whatever in Xavier Johnson. I mean, they obviously did.
But that again goes back on to the coach, though, because this is not a guy that has exactly been a church deacon. Not that you should be.
Look, I'm not absolving Mike of why they are where they are. I mean, he made that investment. Bringing him in the first place, it paid some dividends. But then doubling down when he missed all of last year, and they fought very hard to get him his redshirt year back, and I respect that because it was the best thing for the player. But you have to bring in somebody that can, because it's almost never going to hurt you to have 2 point guards, because you can play them together as long as each of them can shoot or one of them can shoot. If you have 2 point guards, you can play them together. So it would have been prudent to them to bring in another Big Ten ready. And Gabe Cupps did some good things on the weekend. I can't remember whether it was Saturday or Sunday. Their game was
played good defense.
He played, he did some good things. He made some shots. He did some good things, but he's not ready to be a full-time Big Ten point guard. And so they needed to have somebody else there that was, and that's certainly on Mike. I'm not absolving him of why they are where they are, but I'm explaining that with the way college sports are now, with the transfer portal and all of that, there are going to be times when you think, like, look at Arkansas. Arkansas was flying the last few years, and they thought they were going to be great this year, and they're bad. Because
Musselman won't be taking his shirt off in the locker room anytime soon.
Probably not. But he also isn't going to get fired. And there isn't anybody saying, well, it's clearly Eric Musselman's not a good coach. I mean, because that would be ridiculous. I don't agree with everything that Mike has done. And I still think they need to emphasize the procurement of shooting and the application of that shooting when they are playing. In their offense, they have to do it more. And the excuse of not having shooters this year is not sufficient, because a year ago they didn't have enough shooters, but they had one very good Big Ten shooter in Miller Kopp and did not get him enough attempts, even in an offense that had a low post force like Trace Jackson Davis, where you could station him on the same side and make it impossible for defenders to make the decision. Do I leave Miller Kopp to double this guy, or do I not? They never did that enough last year, Jim. They never put defenses in that bond. I'm saying they never did it enough. I'm not saying they never did it, but they never did it enough.
I agree 100%. What's up next for you, Mike?
Yeah, this week, the bracket comes out today at noon. Friday, we will commence on CBB on Fox, the social channels. We will commence our daily seed lists. We do that from Friday through the end of through selection week, daily seed list, until I start doing my daily brackets, which start on Wednesday of selection week. So we'll be doing that. We'll have Big Ten hoops this weekend. We have doubleheader on Saturday, and then Big Ten basketball and beyond on Sunday night. And for the sporting news, I am working on some interesting basketball features that I think and there's a good chance I might show up Thursday night down in Bloomington to see certain basketball player play. I think you may have heard of her.
I was going to say my first guess was not going to be. It's not going to be me, I'm assuming. No, I forgot. I keep forgetting that game was Thursday, man.
Yeah,
but
a little bit of steam went out of it yesterday, disappointingly. I mean, but it's still a huge game. The crowd will be great, and it'll be a great show. But it would have been pretty cool if IU was coming in on a hot streak after beating Illinois yesterday. And unfortunately, they played well below their standard, but now they'll be hungry though, and so it should be a great game.
Hopefully so. Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News, Big Ten Network. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Jim.
Betcha. We got more coming up. Mike Niziolek from the Bloomington Herald-Times. If you're in the market for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore and her 2 decades of experience. Could be the difference between getting the home you want or not. Reach out to her, Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. Back with more after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market.
Good morning, Mike.
How's it going?
Going good. Thanks for coming on.
Mike, how are you, sir?
I'm good, Jim. How are you doing?
I might start calling him the professor.
Professor?
Well, I know they're video games, but it looks like a bunch of great books in the background. So, just like, what do they call Paul Westhead? I forget. He had a nickname. Former teacher that ended up being an NBA coach. Oh, let's see. Man, I wish that the Star and Herald Times would just let you see both things. It's not right. It's not right. What's the last thing you wrote? The emergency?
Yeah, probably.
All right. How did your piece on the new uniforms go? I'm sure that was very popular.
Yeah, I mean, people wanted to see him. I don't know, or I guess not want to see him.
Yeah, they didn't like it. It's funny. It's Indiana fans are just, and they can hear me right now, but it's like, man, if you think about changing, if you change
a couple seconds.
popcorn receptacles, they'd get pissed, I think.
House plans. We have several lots available with scenic views of the golf course. Contact Amy Rhoda with Revesco Real Estate for additional information. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com. That's mystonecrestliving.com for more details. This segment is brought to you by the Ugly Grouper. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining us. Michael Niziolek from the Bloomington Herald Times with us. And Mike, how are you, sir?
I'm good, Jim. How are you doing?
Good, good. Mike Woodson presser coming up today. Ahead of the Northwestern game, Indiana, another home game for Indiana. And we used to be able to say that, hey, this is almost a must win. There are no must wins for Indiana anymore. And that's sad to say with 6 games left in the season, there are no must win games because I don't know what, I guess if they're shooting for the NIT possibly, but the bigger question is building this team. The eyes have to be on next year now, and differences because last year after the loss to Miami, it was very evident where they were as far as matching up with other teams athletically. And boy, a year later, we find them in the same exact position as not having the ability to do that, which I know that they lost Xavier Johnson, but that's one player. They just don't have the horses that are running the right race.
Well, yeah, and I think it's hard to project. I mean, they probably internally have an idea of it, but who does leave too? Enter the transfer portal, leave for the draft. I mean, Khalil Ware has been sort of late first round, second round kind of projected pick. Mackenzie Mbako doesn't seem like he's done enough, but his hopes were being one and done. Who hits the transfer portal as well? You got Trey Galloway, who has, I think, a year of eligibility left. Does he come back? I mean, so you got a lot of questions in terms of how many spots you're going to have open and what you're going to need. I mean, you got Liam McNeely right now, obviously locked in, but they're certainly going to need to do some work in the spring to sort of fill this out and sort of put the pieces back together. And obviously, they need shooters no matter what happens. And so, what this roster looks like here in 4 weeks could be a lot different.
Yeah, I'm just spitballing. They're losing. I think that they lose Khalil Ware. Obviously, they're going to lose Xavier Johnson, Walker. Anthony Walker, I think, is his last year of eligibility. So there's 3. And I think that there's going to be at least 2 players that hit the portal. And if that's the case, that's just that is a total of 5 players with 1 coming in. You still have to fill 4 spots. This is where they failed last season in filling the spots with the needed personnel. They went deeper on the interior with players like Walker and Sparks, and still had an open scholarship and just did not fill the shooting needs. And the bigger question for me is when Mike's asked a direct question, you're just getting the same old cliche answers. And like, I would love to know just on free throw shooting, they're 325th out of 351 teams. That's not an accident. It doesn't just happen. And simply we hear that, oh, they're shooting free throws. We practice. Well, okay. Well, that's not enough. There has to be a plan to change being the 325th worst shooting free throw team in the country. And earlier I said, I don't care if it requires standing behind guys with cymbals and playing music in the gym on Mach 10 sound, but something has to be done differently. And it's as if they're using the same old approach.
Well, but I mean, at some point you are what you are, right? I mean, we're at the point in the season where they just might not be a very good free throw shooting team, and they're going to need to kind of reconfigure things. I mean, they're just not a good shooting team in general. Outside, they've got the big guys and Khalil Lair and Malik Renew shoot well in the post, but I mean, in terms of shooting at the perimeter, they're just not a good shooting team. So they're going to need guys to sort of, I think, change that. I mean, practice habits and all that. This is every team practices free throws. I don't think this is sort of something that's like related to that they're just not doing it. But I mean, I just don't think they have the right pieces right now. And people were kind of concerned about how the roster was built at the beginning of the season. And, I think those kind of fears came to fruition that they just didn't have enough shooters. And then when, you lose Xavier Johnson in terms of your guard play, which was sort of thin to begin with. I mean, Gabe Cupps is in a tough spot. I mean, he played really well against Northwestern, but offensively, he's not the guy you kind of fear right now. And so, I think it's tough. I think this team's in a tough spot in terms of trying to generate offense with what they're playing and what kind of the roster, the way it's built.
Yeah, I agree with that. You have some good pieces on the inside, but even with the pieces around, the offense does not seem to lend itself to being anything other than an inside-out team again, which is something that they have been for the last couple of years, and was told, hey, that things are going to change this year, this, that, and the other thing, and it still hasn't. You've got guys like Trey Galloway. I know he's not leading 3-point shooter in the country. Last year he had a decent on a smaller sample size. Mackenzie Mbako, it just doesn't seem like they're getting him into a rhythm. I don't know if that's partly, his fault and partly the fault of the offense itself, but there just doesn't seem, I don't know. It's shooters shoot, and there just doesn't seem to be the confidence by these guys to take certain shots a lot of the time.
Yeah. I mean, it's just that they've struggled with confidence, I think, all season. I think they've struggled with sort of, I wrote about urgency and focus. You've kind of seen, at home they've been better, but on the road they've really struggled. It's just a team Mike Woodson's talked about kind of their youth all season, their inexperience. I think that certainly played a role. When we talk about Mackenzie Mbako, he's sort of been up and down at times. And when he's looked confident, been in the flow of the game, you saw in that second half, I think against Northwestern, what he can do. But it's just not consistent enough. And so when you're lacking that consistency, teams take advantage. And Mike Woodson likes to say, or has liked to say all season, they played well in spurts, but it's just not enough, especially at this point in the season. I think you thought that they'd get better. There'd be an arc to the season where, non-conference schedule, I thought they did what they needed to do. Big Ten, they'd start, maybe take a few lumps early, but then they'd slowly start getting better. And they haven't do that. They've tapered off and sort of seem to now be kind of in a malaise that they're, not playing for as much, because obviously I think the NCAA tournament hopes have gone away. And I think that's sort of impacted their play on the court.
I agree with that. But I think that the bigger question is thinking that they were going to be better, but what was being done to give hope to that? Just time, just normal practice and the games, or what specifically is being done to improve things? That would be my question. But even if you ask that, I still think you're just going to get, well, we got to keep grinding and we got to keep working and yada, yada, yada. But what are you doing specifically to get better? I don't know that they are doing anything different.
Well, at some point, the answer might be that they're just limited by what they have, that they didn't construct the roster right. And he's not, nobody's going to say that publicly. So, and you can't throw your guys under the bus. So what you can say is we're going to keep working. So I think there is some sort of limit to it that, probably if you asked him, would truth serum, you should have added another shooter with that extra scholarship spot. Yeah. But he doesn't like to think about woulda, coulda, shoulda, and he's going to more focus on here's where we are. And so, in terms of wanting sort of answers, I think that's probably all we're going to get.
But see, to me, that's the problem, not having any accountability. That it gives me worry when they're not accountable for it. I mean, just be accountable. I'm fine with it. But just be accountable.
I think being accountable would I think part of it is he doesn't want to throw, if you say you messed up constructing the roster, you're technically throwing the guys you have under the bus. And so coaches don't like to do that because they don't want to say, well, these guys did not play as well as I thought they would. You know what I'm saying? It's like they hate that.
You just say, I didn't get them the help that they need.
Maybe, but that's fair.
And I get what you're saying. I understand. There's a fine line that you have to walk because it's a lot of reasons. Number one, you don't want to take away if any confidence that they might have
right.
by that. And I'm not suggesting that. It's just to be accountable for the fact that you did not bring in that guy in that open scholarship, that you could have brought in another guy that could have helped make Trey Galloway's job easier, that could have done a lot of things, that could have opened up things.
Well, and then the problem did get worse. If Xavier Johnson had been healthy all year, it might not have been such a bad in terms of the guards, having some depth. But, obviously that just made it so much worse where he's, missed 6 or 7 games earlier and now is going to end up missing, most of the season. And one injury, the injuries were kind of not connected to last year's injury. So it was, more like, not something that they could have foreseen, him hurting his elbow, so that is part is tough. But like you said, you want an insurance policy, but, cause it's not like that scholarship would come in handy next year. Cause you're going to have to replace, like you said, 5 or 6 guys, no matter what, anyway. It's not like that would have boosted you up. Like you needed that spot. So yeah, it is. I think they did clearly make a mistake in terms of not getting an extra piece, but that they are where they are. There's nothing you can do about it now.
Exactly. And so they do have 6 games left in this season. What does the focus need to be for them? Because NCAA tournament obviously off the table here, but what do they need to look at, focus on, gear towards?
Well, I still think this team, we talked about guys entering the transfer portal, but if there were going to be guys that do come back. Some of the younger guys, a run in the NIT would not be a bad thing. That's what sort of helped the women sort of build this thing out. I think that extra playing time, extra practice wouldn't be the worst thing for this team. I think trying to win a game or two in the Big Ten tournament would also give them some sort of look. We have some building pieces towards next year as we kind of go into the offseason. I think if you sort of really crash and burn here these last 6 games, you're one and done in the Big Ten tournament. Going on the recruiting, trail. I know Indiana means something, and they have that cachet still, but it makes the job all that much harder. That you look terrible over the last month and a half. I don't think that's the message that they want to sell. I think if you have a message of like, look, we were young, we fit the pieces kind of together, it came together late, but we got there. I think that would have been. I think that certainly wouldn't be a bad thing.
Absolutely. What's up next for you, my friend? I understand. Obviously, Indiana playing Nebraska on Wednesday.
Yeah. Well, and I think the big, for the women, obviously, I know they're coming off a loss, but the Iowa game is going to be big
yeah.
here. I think, a lot of excitement and national attention on that game. So, I think they could erase whatever bad the Illinois loss did. They could erase that by winning on Thursday, and so a lot of stuff coming this week on that game.
Absolutely, Mike. Thank you a lot. Cannot tell you much. We appreciate you. Make sure you're giving Mike Niziolek a follow on Twitter and be a subscriber. Bloomington Herald Times keeps you informed on what's going on, man. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate you.
Sounds good, Jim. We'll talk to you next week.
We got more coming up here, brought to you by our good friends from the Ugly Grouper down on Anna Maria Island, Florida. When you're down in that area traveling, or for those of you that listen and live down there, I know we have a lot of YouTube listeners. We appreciate each and every one of you guys. Make sure that all of you have hit the subscribe button, though, because like 60% of the people who listen have not been subscribed, which costs you nothing. We've got more coming up. Take a quick break. We'll hear from Mike Whitson in a little while, but we've got more after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Formerly, I did. Either 8:50 or 10:10. I'm trying to schedule Tyler Harris now for Friday, and Bob Kravitz is not going to be with us, so it would be great if he could fill that. You know what that is?
I mean, I know it's a song, like a kid song or something.
I know it's a song. I meant to ask him if he liked the jerseys.
I think a lot of the arguments, I don't think a lot of people necessarily hate alternate jerseys like you were saying earlier, by the way.
I'm talking about these particular ones.
Yeah. It sounded like you were saying earlier, though, that people just hate jerseys that aren't the classic ones, which I don't think is necessarily the case. There are people who are like that, but I don't think that's
9
the case
times
for
out of
everybody.
10. No, it's not for everybody.
Because I like alternate jerseys. I just think the ones
I
that
do
they did
too,
against,
but we're not
Northwestern team.
We're not like everybody else, John. We're some different individuals. There's just a lot of people who just don't like change at all. And I'm like,
yeah,
you can't. Now, the thing is, you have to really look at these jerseys. There's a lot going on, but it's all black. It's blacked out. The one thing that they don't have on, they have Hoosiers on the side of the shorts. There needs to be an IU on the shorts, I think, instead of Hoosiers.
All right, here we go. You just remember to break when it's time for the presser, I guess.
I'll break right before that. Or get 0.9% APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMooreHonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Tuesday. Don't forget, brought to you by our friends down in Sellersburg for you down in southern Indiana. Need to keep up with that championship smile. Go see our good friend, Dr. Jay Reynolds. He'll keep you taken care of. He takes care of the Todd father, myself, his dad. He's a second-generation Indiana dentist. Appreciate him very much. Has been with Indiana Sports Beat Radio from day one. Appreciate those guys immensely. All of our sponsors. So if you get the opportunity to support them, please do, because without them, we cannot bring this content to you. And we could certainly use more if you happen to know of anyone in the realty business or insurance, attorneys, etc. You could feel free to pass that along. I'm trying to look up real quick. Hoosiers Connect, which is an arm of Hoosiers for Good, has an announcement popping today. The official announcement has not come out just yet, I guess. But if you saw earlier, I'm about to reach over and find out when does the announcement come. In collaboration with Starlight Distillery down in southern Indiana, Starlight, Indiana, outside in Clark County, Huber's Orchard and Winery, of course, where you find the Indiana event each year. But in collaboration with Starlight Distillery, they've got something brewing. And we'll see what that is when the official announcement happens today at some point. I can tell you that just looking on the Twitter, as us older people call it. You know what's funny? I was thinking about this. They changed the name to X. Really smart, to be honest with you. Smart idea. I mean, the black X, unmistakable. But how often do you see people refer to it as just X? It is either the social media platform X, formerly known as Twitter. It's like Prince. It was always, it turned the name into 10 times longer. Yes,
it also
John.
reminds me, and this may or may not be the best comparison, but it's what came to my head when you started mentioning this, is how everybody refers to the amphitheater in Indianapolis as Deer Creek. No matter how many different sponsors they change their name to, it'll always be known as Deer Creek.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that. Oh man, which one is it for me? Well, plus, they've changed the name too many times, first of all. But then, worst of all, once they changed it to a name that nobody could pronounce. The Clips Center when it was the Clips.
Oh, yeah, when it was the Clips. Yeah,
Clips.
that was something.
Clips.
Now it's what, Ruoff Home Mortgage, something like that.
But it's been like 5 different things, man. You can't. I don't know how you expect. The only way you can get that kind of traction, Gamebridge Fieldhouse has kind of gone through the same thing. Started out as Conseco, then it was
Bankers Life.
Yeah, don't see.
I will say it's always that arena has always had names that kind of roll off the tongue. It's
and more importantly, there are tons of events that go on there constantly, so the name gets said constantly. So even when there's a new one, it is said enough to where it gets generated into your mind after a while. But and I'm sure eventually it will be X, and everyone will be able to. They'll finally get to that point, which, like I said, pretty smart. That's a pretty damn good name. X marks the spot, baby. Did I mention Montverde? Big win over the weekend over Long Island, number 2 Long Island. Nobody is close to them. When I was down there, though, and watching them, they played a team called Prolific Prep, who is from down in that area. Hell of a game. That's probably the closest game they played this year. And they are a legit all-star team. I don't know how anyone could beat them. They would have to have just a horrific night when you have Liam McNeely, Cooper Flagg, Asa Newell. Oh man, the kid that's going to Baylor, and the 5th one that I'm forgetting about that's also D1. Derek Queen. We keep seeing things pop up that he's getting close to a decision, which he is getting closer because every day he gets closer, but that's just crap that is being put out, I believe. When it's time for him to make his decision known, he will make it known. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I think that both Indiana and Maryland have fallen there. I think that they were both probably, 1A and 1B. I don't know that either of those teams are on the one line at the moment. In my opinion. I think that when I interviewed him, go back and on the YouTube channel, and you can find a couple of interviews I did with him. And he talks about watching these teams that he wanted. Specifically, he had 2 different times he was going to announce a decision that he rescinded and pushed back. And I asked him specifically why. And he said, he just wanted to watch the teams and see how they do this and do that. And at that time, I'm thinking, well, that's probably not good for Indiana. Maybe it is. Maybe, watching Kalel Ware be able to do whatever he has, all the things he's done, but they're very different players. He's very different player than Malik Renew. Derek Queen's a post player. I did not see him one time close to the perimeter. He parks it. So there's no reason why Indiana can't get him, because Kalel Ware is going to be gone, and they could certainly use that presence. And he knows that they'll run that if Mike Woodson's there, that he's going to touch the ball because it's coming through the middle. But you cannot count Kansas out. And Houston, with their success, Houston, I don't know. Houston might be the dark horse in that. You never know. A scarier thing is when I was, and I think I mentioned this when I was talking to Liam McNeely. I asked Liam if he watches games, and if so, does he see where his game could help Indiana when he comes in? You know, what he could do for them. And by the time the second I stop talking, before Liam starts talking, you can hear someone off camera say, shooting. You can imagine who that was. So it's going to be interesting to see how that works itself out. But I'm sure we'll be finding out soon enough. Let's take a quick break, and we'll come back. When we do, we'll have a little bit more before we head into the Mike Woodson presser, as Indiana's preparing to take on Nebraska, a team that they lost to in Lincoln and needs this win. Nebraska needs this win, people. Does that make a difference in how they play Indiana? Does Indiana respond? We've got more coming up. Back with it all here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market.
All right.
All right. All right. All right. All right. Already have it.
Already what?
I was talking in my phone. My bad. My bad. My bad. What? Oh, no. Wrong one. There we go. And that is BRY. Yep. Boom, boom.
Boom, boom. That sounds like boo booey.
Take a drink. Boo booey. Boo booey. Boo booey. Rat-a-tat-tat-tat, blue booey. Boo boo booey. Holy moly.
All right, here we go.
Chop Shop Market and Table has the largest selection of in-house made products around and everything you need to make a gourmet meal at home. Or pick out a tomahawk steak or a grouper filet and enjoy it cooked to perfection in Chop Shop Steakhouse. Chop Shop Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville and Evansville. Pizza, burgers, beer. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday, as we are about to hook up with Mike Woodson's press conference for today, as Indiana prepares to meet the Nebraska Cornhuskers tomorrow. A game that Nebraska needs to win, as they're probably a bubble team. They've done some good things, but not quite enough just yet. There we go. So, getting ready to get on there. But they need this game. Indiana needs this game to show that they've got some moxie. They need this game to show
recording in progress
that they're willing to fight even when things look bleak, like right now when you have 6 games left and your season is kind of already in the tank. But will they show up? Northwestern was without its not its best player, Boo-Booey, obviously its best player, but probably its second best player, Ty Berry. They've lost him, which sucks for them. They're a team that can do damage in that tournament. And then Caitlin Clark is coming to town on Thursday. Big deal? Seems to be. It will be not the last time you can see her in Indiana, as I fully expect her to be the first round pick for the Indiana Fever next year. I think she comes out. She's done all she needs to do in college, which she could come back and Iowa would be really good. But she's not losing anything. She's not going to lose her endorsements. She's not going to, she has State Farm. She's the only college player that has a State Farm deal right now. So she's good. Because the top end that the WNBA players make is about $100,000. The basketball is just a means to other things. Again, I've said it many times before. That's why you see them playing over in Russia and places like that, where they make 10 times the money. It's nuts. But it is what it is. What are your expectations for Mike Woodson today in the presser? Looking at some of the comments from the Andy Moore Honda hotline. Andy says, he's coming back. No question about that. The only way he's not back is if he chooses to walk away. I assume you're talking about Mike Woodson. Yeah, absolutely. It would take him leaving on his own. That change is not coming. So I've said that 1,000 times. That is not happening. I don't see him walking away. I really don't. Although I'm not in his shoes. There could be a point where he says, you know what, I don't need this. I'm tired of it. I kind of did what I was brought in to do, at least as a start. Ended the terrible run of not making the NCAA tournament, which that in and of itself is a joke. This is a program that should never not make the tournament like it used to be. And I'm not one of those guys that is. I'm not looking at it from a fan standpoint. I'm saying Indiana. They have no excuses to not make the tournament. There is no program set up for success better than Indiana. You've got the greatest in-state talent every year. This year may not be the greatest season ever, but they're still producing talent that's going places. The fan base, forget it. It's off the chart. As bad as they get, they still don't lose this gigantic fan base. Facilities, iconic Assembly Hall. It's not perfect, especially for those that have to sit in a balcony, but is an iconic place that people still marvel at. And there's nobody that said it better than Tom Crean. It's Indiana. It doesn't matter. I don't care that they haven't won a national championship since '87. You know what? Duke didn't win one for the first, 75 years of their existence. UConn didn't make one for the first 90 years of their existence. Everybody's judging everybody off of this little bitty window. And that's why it's not from a fan standpoint that I will jump to the defense of Indiana. It's because they've been doing it for too long of a damn time. And although they have not won a national title, they were in the Final Four 2002. Yeah, all right, that's 22 years ago. How many teams have not done that? They won 3 Big Ten titles since then. How many teams have not done that? Let's go get to this right now.
All right, we'll start with Todd and then Mike Niz.
Hey, Mike. When it comes to free throws, you guys have done a great job of creating chances to get at the line this year. I think you're 36th in the country, but obviously not doing a great job when you get there. I think bottom 30 in terms of percentage. When it comes to the players and their reaction to this, what are you seeing from them? Are they pressing too much? Are they not taking it seriously enough? Somewhere in between? Where are you seeing that?
Well, I think they take it serious. It's because we shoot them every day, all day in practice, from the beginning to the end, in the middle. It's just a mindset, man. I've never seen anything like it in my career. I mean, it's just a mindset that these guys got. Just go up and they're free, man. I mean, when they give you an opportunity to go score a free bucket or a point, 2 points, you got to take advantage of it. And, the fact that we've been able to get to the line, says a lot about, our offense and how we've constructed it, trying to play pretty much inside out based on our personnel and what we have. And we just got to keep working. That's all I can say. I mean, in terms of shooting them and getting these guys comfortable, man, because tomorrow they're going to be in that same position. They're going to get fouled, and they got to just step up and make them.
Mike, then Alex.
Yeah, Mike, I mean, with the youth you guys have and inexperience in terms of this stretch, losing 3 or 4, 2 at home, how have you kind of tried to, do you get a sense of their psyche and how they're kind of handling it and kind of trying to help them through it, just being kind of something they probably haven't experienced before, a lot of these kids?
Well, it's tough, I mean, it's my job to help these guys navigate through it. I'm trying to stay positive and still, have to coach. I mean, when you watch film with these guys and you see things that are not right, you can't let it slide. You have to point it out. Films is a teaching tool, and you hope that guys that they don't take it personal. You shouldn't take it personal. Hell, it's coaching. All coaches do it. So, I mean, I look at our first 5 games, we were 4-1. The next 10, we were 7-3. And these last 10, we're 3-7. And you figure if you just added 3 more games to that mix, you're sitting, up at the top, not at the top, but you're above the middle, going towards the top, and you're in a good position. But right now, we're not there. So we got 6 games left, and I think we got to win them all. I mean, that's just, maybe I'm putting pressure on our guys, but that's the only way I can coach. We got to take it one game at a time and try to win them all.
Alex and then Mike Schumann.
Mike, thanks for the time. You've talked at length about the front court being kind of the strength of this team this year, but when you kind of look at the rebounding numbers on both ends, I think you guys are 10th in offensive rebounding percentage and defensive rebounding percentage in Big Ten games. What maybe is not happening kind of on the glass that needs to happen, and how have you guys tried to address that?
Well, we work on blockout drills pretty much every day. We don't send 4 guys to the rim because I'm a big believer. You can send 3, but trying to send 4 and then having balance coming back the other way from a defensive standpoint, I've always thought it hurts you. So, from an offensive standpoint, I think our 3 bigs, they just got to be more active in going to the glass. Malik, especially because he doesn't get a lot of putbacks, and we don't get them as a team. And then defensively, all 5 guys. I mean, we've gotten outworked. I mean, the last game. I mean, second chance shots, 50-50 balls. They were the difference. And when we're doing the right things and getting 50-50 balls and blocking out and rebounding, when we rebound with teams, we're normally pretty good, and we put ourselves in a nice position to win. But again, on the other night, it was the 50-50 balls and the second chance opportunities that we gave up, along with the missed free throws that cost us, I thought.
Mike and Mason.
Yeah, good morning, Coach. Obviously, you've been around this game a long time, seen a number of different teams. What's your theory on, can a team become a good free throw shooting team, or is that something that if it's important to you as a staff, it's going to have to be emphasized in recruiting?
Well, I mean, it's, I look at, McKenzie, he's probably our best free throw shooter. Gabe is not a bad free throw shooter from there. It's not real good. And it's not like these guys got bad strokes. Malik's shot is a good shot. The big fella Ware is a good shot. Gallo's shot's not that. It's not tore up. None of these guys' shots are tore up. So I look at it just from a mental standpoint, man. You can't be scared to step up there. It's a part of basketball. It's been that way from the beginning of the time. So, all I can do is keep preaching. If their shots were tore up, then that's different. Then you got to work on the mechanics and do a lot of different things in that area. But they don't have bad shots. So it's between the ears to me. We just got to get these guys comfortable in making them, because it's a big part of the game, and you should punish teams when they put you in that position.
Mason and Jack.
Mike, thanks for your time this morning. I think last night you said that Gabe Cupps played one of his better games of the season in defending Boo Boo in Northwestern. Kind of when you look back at his season this year and what's next for him, kind of what do you see as the next steps of his development?
Well, again, he's been thrown to the wolves basically as a freshman. When I recruited Gabe, the deal was, everybody thought Jalen wouldn't be a one and done. That was the whole deal. And you had X, and you knew Gabe would come in and probably be a third point guard behind two veteran guys, Jalen being a sophomore now. And, when we knew Jalen was leaving, we desperately tried to find a backup point guard or a starting point guard to go along with Xavier. and Gallo. So we explored. We talked to different guys, and guys went to different, went other places based on they thought that was a better fit. So, we basically came into this season hoping like hell that X didn't get hurt, and Gabe would get an opportunity to learn slowly. But that hadn't been the case. He's been thrown right out there. And I think he's had a good freshman season, man. I mean, considering. He hadn't shot the ball very well, but the other night he made 2 threes. And defensively, I think he's been solid from day one. I mean, in trying to deal, especially in the Big Ten, with every team's point guard is pretty damn good. And he's pretty much held his own from a defensive standpoint. I thought the other night against Boo Booey, I mean, he's been one of the hottest point guards in the league. And the whole day, young man, 3 for 14 shooting, and some of the different times down the floor where he was able to keep him in front, which has been a task for a lot of teams. I was really impressed with that.
Jack and then Tom.
Mike, you've talked a lot about this season, just the team playing well in spurts, but not being able to, put a full game together. I guess, why do you think that's been the case, and kind of what do you feel like you can do at this point of the season to get them to kind of sustain a full 40-minute game when they've shown that they can play at a high level, in spurts?
Well, again, you look at, I think the best game we played to me was the Kansas game. And then we dropped the ball the last 3-4 minutes of that game. So, I mean, we've proven we can play at a high level. You just got to keep working, man. I think the reason why we're dropping the ball, a lot of times it's just not used to being there. The newness of our team. A lot of these guys, my job is to try to put them in the best position possible. And, you try to go to guys that you think that can deliver. And, it's a mixture of things, not making shots, not making free throws, critical turnovers at critical times, not getting a key rebound. All of that is just newness, I think. This team the last 2 years didn't do that a lot of times. I mean, we were able to, if we jumped on the team, we were able to sustain it and play it all the way to the end and not play in spurts like we've had to do this season. And I just like to think as the years go by and we continue to grow, if we're able to keep everybody together, you won't have that. But we got 6 games left, and it starts tomorrow. I mean, this is a big game for our team, man, in terms of really staying in the hunt and trying to move the other way versus going the other way.
Tom, last one.
Mike, in 2024 here, you and I both turned 66 years old, and I know how my mindset kind of works, and I'm kind of curious about how yours works. Like, do you think at all in the few little minutes of off time you have as to how much longer you want to do this?
Well, again, I came back to try to put this team in the best position possible, and I'm going to continue to do that. I mean, I'm 60, almost 66, but I feel good and I still move around, and I still think well in terms of the game, and I still think I can teach the game. So I don't know. I mean, there are coaches that are coaching into their 70s, and I don't know if that's something I'll do. I don't know. But at this point, I'll take it a day at a time, a year at a time. I'm not going anywhere anytime soon, guys. I'm just not. So I'm going to continue to build this team and try to put this team in the best position possible and see where it leads us.
2 minutes.
Mike.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Coach.
There was Indiana basketball coach Mike Woodson. That was a good question at the end there, but it should give you some clarity that he has zero plans to go anywhere anytime soon. And that means that will not happen at a minimum until after next season. There are just multiple reasons that I could give you, that I have given you. Financial chief among them, also recruiting and things of not. Indiana doesn't want to be looked at as some place that doesn't give you the opportunity, which that's not the case. Everyone has had the opportunity that has come through, so no worries there. But you heard it. Those are his thoughts as they head into Nebraska. Hey, we're back tomorrow to do this again. Looking forward to it, as Dylan Sin from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette will join us as we will preview the Nebraska game. And then don't forget, tomorrow night after the game with Todd Leary, it's going to be a late one. What is that, an 8 o'clock start, John?
I actually have not looked at the tip-off time, so I'm not too sure.
But it's about that. But anyway, we'll have after the game with Todd Leary, Indiana basketball post-game show tomorrow evening. But also on the program tomorrow, Kyle Ned Rep from the Indy Star joins us. Get prepared to preview the boys sectional as that draw was released tonight. And then, of course, Rick Bozich as well. Tonight, Trent Sisley playing. He's going to be awarded as his school's all-time leading rebounder. He's just a junior. He has another year to just destroy that record. So he will do that as well. But that's going to wrap it up for us today. Cannot thank everybody enough. Thanks to big thanks to Mike DeCourcy, of course, to Mike Niziolek. Most importantly, thanks to you guys. Without you, we have no reason to be here, and we're grateful that you give us that opportunity. John, the producer, for keeping us between the white lines. And until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I'll see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.